What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another fantasy football video. This is a good one you guys really liked last year. It's part of like a mini series. Last year was only 2 videos. I'm going to stretch it to 3 this time because I pretty much forgot to talk about the middle video, and there was less to talk about, less strategy involved in the middle rounds, but this is going to be early round draft strategy for this one, and then middle round in, I don't really know when I'm going to release that one. Maybe I'll hold off like a week or two, do the middle round video, and then hold off another week or two, and then do the late round video. Haven't completely decided yet, but that's roughly what it's going to be. This one, early round, we're going to get into it in a second. One thing I wanted to note quickly, the Facebook group is likely going to be closed at this point when you're hearing it now. There's only 10 spots left. Remember, we've told you for the past month that we're closing it off at 300, and it's at 290 as of recording this on Saturday. So unless absolutely no one signs up, this video is going up on Tuesday, I think. It's either Tuesday or Wednesday. This is Mock Draft Monday, obviously, every Monday. But I think this goes up on Tuesday, so it's probably going to be full. Now the only way you get in is premium member of the website. Again, you don't just get that with it. You get our premium rankings, which have the notes of every player, tiered rankings, projection, injury ratings, their injury history, all that stuff in one format. You're going to get our favorite late round picks. It just has so much information. Plus, we're not probably going to be making videos during the year. So we're going to have our waiver wire picks there. We're going to have our trade targets there. We're going to have, I'm going to personally write a DraftKings article every week. And I'm going to give you guys some tournament lineups, some cash game. I'll give you literally the cash game lineup I am using. I was killing it in cash games towards the end of last year. So if you play DFS, definitely look at that. It's not like you have to play the lineup anyways. Plus, you can play free tournaments on DraftKings. Throw some of the tournament lineups in there and maybe win some money. My roommate did that in baseball. He literally just one day threw together some random lineup, took him 5 minutes, and he won a free contest. Like, what the heck? But anyways, if you guys do want to be part of the group, go over, become a premium member of the website. You can get all that other stuff on top. And once you're in the group, you're in the group for life. I'm never shutting down the group. We're having some great discussions on there, so head on over and check that out. Website is in the link below in the description. But this video is about early round strategy. And I say strategy kind of hesitantly because it's not as much a strategy as a mentality that you need to employ during the draft. So what do I really mean by that? I listened to a podcast by Pro Football Focus a little while back. It was about a week ago now, I think it was about a week ago. And I agreed with a lot of the things that he was saying, and it kind of ties into this. Now, the video, it wasn't specifically about early round strategy. It was just something he brought up as something you need to be thinking about early on, but it really ties into this video. So I'm going to talk about that in a second when I bring up the ADPs of like the first 20. And I'm sorry if it's a little small to fit all 20 on one screen. It has to be a certain size, but I'm going to be telling you what I'm talking about. But it fits into this graph. Now, you guys have seen this graph. This is, I believe, the 3rd video I've showed this graph in, and it's just the cumulative average by round of a wide receiver or running back. I didn't count tight ends or quarterbacks in this just because I wanted to look at the more stable positions because quarterbacks are very different in different drafts. I mean, you could have Cam Newton going in the 1st round, some leagues, and going in the 3rd round, other leagues last year. I'm talking obviously not this year, but Rodgers would be like that this year. But wide receiver and running back are typically more stable from draft to draft, so I wanted to just focus on those. And it's about ones that hit. So ones that were top 30 because I did startable, essentially, in a standard league. So a standard 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. I said, okay, that would be the top 30 in a 12-team league. How many in each round, percentage-wise, over the last 5 years, have hit? And obviously, intuitively, you know it goes down, but it's really the first 4 rounds that you have significantly the most chance of hitting. And I say this because this is the mentality you need when you're going into the first couple rounds. You have to say, okay, this is my best chance. And I think people just forget about that sometimes. You need to look at your draft board and say, okay, I cannot screw this up because if I mess up in, let's say 2 of these rounds, let's say rounds 1 and 3, you just bust. All right, you picked Gurley last year, and then who was going in the 3rd round? I have no idea. Was Alshon going? I don't know. Someone got hurt. But someone gets hurt in your 1st and 3rd, or just bust in your 1st and 3rd, you're kind of screwed, right? Because your chances of hitting on like a 12th round pick are minimal, and really it's rounds 7 through 12. They're minimal. your chances of hitting on those. But it's your first 4 rounds you need to kill. So that's what this video is about. It's about saying, okay, what do I need to think about when I'm going into the draft? So let's just run through an exercise here. I got the ADPs on the board from Fantasy Football Calculators in PPR leagues. Let's say we're the 9 pick, because I know a lot of you guys already know ahead of time what pick you're going to be. I don't personally in my leagues, but a lot of you know months in advance, so you mock draft from that point. And you say, hey, Nick, I really want to go wide receiver, running back in the first 2 rounds. Who do you think I should be targeting? Well, that's not the mentality you can have going into a draft. You can know who you're targeting in late rounds. You can know, hey, I really want a Josh Doxson. I really want Pirine. I really want Mac. I really want these guys. You can do that because it's not as important who you've already drafted, because typically you're not going to have 7 running backs in the first 7 rounds and not be able to take one after. But when you start your draft, you have a clean slate. You can really draft whoever you want. But what you can't do is put yourself into a box. You can't say, I'm drafting a wide receiver with my first pick, and then I'm taking a running back because I don't like these guys. Well, okay. If the draft goes normally, maybe, since you've done mock drafts, you know what you're doing, but don't put yourself into that box. Let's say we're at the 9 pick. We already know typically the first 6 picks are going to be in some order: Bell, DJ, Zeke, 1, 2, 3, and then Brown, Julio, Odell. That's just how it works this year. Maybe someone slides in, but if someone slides in, then maybe Odell gets kicked out to 7. But really, that's how it's been going. Let's say in the next 3 picks, we got Mike Evans, AJ Green, Jordy Nelson. Those guys go off the board. So you wanted a wide receiver with your first pick, but the best option for you is really T.Y. and Demaryius Thomas, and I don't really see an argument for anyone else that you could take in the first round. But since you've locked yourself into this box, you're taking, we'll say, T.Y. Hilton. I have T.Y. Hilton a little bit higher than Michael Thomas. Either one will work in this scenario, but we'll say you took T.Y. Hilton. Now comes your next pick, and you're saying, okay, I need a running back, but let's just say that the guys taken after you are, well, let's say you have 4 picks after you. Let's say McCoy gets taken, Gordon gets taken, because that's definitely going to happen. But we'll say that Freeman and Ajayi also get taken. So we're going to say the running backs fly off the board because everyone else realized that there was value there. Now your options for running back are Jordan Howard and DeMarco Murray. And that's not a bad option. For me, it's Jordan Howard slightly, but honestly, they're essentially even, so you can take whoever you want. But we'll just say we took Jordan Howard. So now our first 2 picks, a running back, wide receiver like we wanted, and we got Jordan Howard and T.Y. Hilton. Now, I just don't think that either of those were that good of a pick, because we locked ourselves into a box. We said, okay, I have to reach on a wide receiver. The value was at running back. The best pick for me was LaShawn McCoy in this scenario. Some people could have taken Melvin Gordon. Okay, you can do that. Whoever you really like. I'm not sure there was another running back I would have taken. But the best pick was one of those 2 guys. It wasn't to take a wide receiver. So don't go into the first couple rounds thinking I have to take a wide receiver in the first round. I have to take a running back in the first round. The team that you could have gotten would have started off with McCoy, and then likely you still would have gotten T.Y. or Demaryius, or why do I keep saying Demaryius? You would have gotten one of T.Y. Hilton or Michael Thomas with that second round pick, because they were so far out and the value wasn't there to take them in that first round pick. So you could have gotten McCoy and T.Y. instead of Jordan Howard and T.Y. So just think about it that way. Think about it. I have to look for value in the first 4 rounds. I can't think about, I have to take a wide receiver, I have to take a running back. Think about value. Another thing I want to talk about. What is the value? I believe you guys have seen this chart before. I'm not 100% sure that I've shown it, but I think I have. This is going to prove kind of 2 points I want to talk about. I've already done a video about should you be taking running backs or wide receivers early. I'll be doing a video about RB0 and wide receiver 0 strategies. But again, those are strategies. We don't lock ourselves into a box walking into the draft saying, I'm doing RB0. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But when in doubt, early on, it's usually better to go running back. And here's why. Yes, it's harder to hit, but when you do hit, it's more important. We're going to throw 2015 out as an outlier. Every single statistical study shows that 2015 was an outlier for the running back position. It also shows that it was a semi-outlier for the running back position in a positive way in 2016 and a negative way for the wide receiver position in 2016. But 2015 was an outlier. Typically, the value of hitting on a running back is greater than the value of hitting on a wide receiver. This is PPR. In standard, it's even more. It's even more important to hit on a top running back in standard scoring than PPR. But even in PPR, you can see the value of hitting on a one wide receiver is higher than hitting on a one, or value of hitting on a one running back is higher than hitting on a one wide receiver. But I bring this up because look at that graph and look at this one. This is the difference between a running back and a quarterback. Now, the wide receiver is a little bit less. The bars are a little bit lower because, again, value of running backs higher than wide receiver. But this is why I'm telling you, don't take a quarterback in the first 4 rounds. Because even if you hit, and typically you won't hit on the number 1 quarterback if you take the number 1 quarterback. I've done studies and it basically shows that the number 1 ADP quarterback usually does not finish number 1. Okay? Now, yes, the number 1 running back doesn't also finish that way, but there are so many quarterbacks throughout the years. It's usually at least once, a lot of times 2, of the top 5 go undrafted. Not even like go drafted in the 10th round, go undrafted. So do not take a quarterback early, because even if you hit, what if you had hit on a running back? It would have been so much more beneficial to your team to hit on the number 3 running back and the number 3 quarterback, because there's no difference between the number 3 quarterback and the number 8 quarterback. Like, there's no difference. But there's a pretty big difference between the number 3 running back and the number 8 running back. So that's what this graph was. I don't think I've shown this one yet, but it's just the mentality you have to have. Yes, I understand you guys think that you can predict Aaron Rodgers being number 1 quarterback. But even if you do, that pick would have been so much better taking another shot in a running back, because it's so hard to predict running backs. So hard. Week to week, it's easy. You play DraftKings, you know that. Week to week, it's pretty easy to project running back production. But in a season-long format, it is very difficult. Unless you're talking about Bell, DJ, and Zeke, not getting hurt, obviously, because we can't predict injuries here. Those guys, you can predict their workload. McCoy, you can predict his workload. Ajayi, without injury, you can predict his workload. Melvin Gordon, you can predict. I'll say you can predict Jordan Howard and Devonta Freeman. I'm probably missing someone. DeMarco, you can predict. You can't predict if Derrick Henry's going to take over, but I can pretty much predict if DeMarco doesn't get hurt, Derrick Henry's not taking over. But once you start getting after that, the easiness of predicting drops significantly. So you got to take shots. You got to take shots on running backs. And I'm not saying just like pull a running back out of your ass. All right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you got to look before you get into the draft and say, okay, I don't want to take Jay Ajayi. You got to look at the guys and say, I just don't trust it. I don't trust the injuries. I don't trust the workload. Now, I'm not saying I don't trust Jay Ajayi. I think he's a good pick, but I just like named a random one. You got to look at each running back and say, okay, do I trust him? Would I draft him? Because if you're sitting there and you're taking random shots on running back, like you just drafted Leonard Fournette, and after you picked him, you're like, I don't even want him. Like, no, that wasn't what I'm talking about. I'm not saying take running backs because they're more important to hit on, so just take every running back you see. No. I'm saying use that as a tiebreaker. God, I couldn't think of the word. Use that as a tiebreaker. If you got 2 guys ranked right next to each other, you have no idea who to take, honestly, early on, take the running back, because it's just harder to hit on a running back because you got to take shots on him. Another reason for that is what you guys saw in the previous video I did, I believe it was last week, about who you should take, running backs and wide receivers. It's so much easier to get a starting option at the wide receiver position in the middle rounds. Because lately, in the past 5, 6, 7 years, there's been an upward trajectory in the amount and the quality of these backup guys. The number 2s and number 3s in this team, the slot receivers. These guys that weren't really fantasy relevant in the past are becoming fantasy relevant now. You see it on this chart. Wide receivers 21 through 40 in the past couple of years are becoming more and more relevant. They're getting more and more points. So your flex guy is getting you more and more points. You see it on this next chart. The number of qualified wide receivers is going up every single year. There are more wide receivers that are start-worthy options for you. So why am I showing these charts? Again, it's because you can't lock yourself into a box. And I'm not saying you need to take a running back in the first couple rounds, but I'm saying that using all of these things to your advantage is what you need to do, and take advantage of value. Just knowing that there's a lot of qualified wide receivers, so you can take Crowder, Diggs, Snead, guys I love in the middle rounds in PPR leagues, just because you know you can take them doesn't mean that you say, oh, I can't take a wide receiver in the first round. Because what if 6 running backs go off the board and Antonio Brown's there at number 7? Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I do believe that running backs are going to get more into the first round to where we only see 3 wide receivers come draft day. I really believe that only 3 wide receivers will be taken in the first round, and the value will open up at the wide receiver position. But if Antonio Brown's there at 7, and you're like, well, I mean, I can easily get some wide receivers in the middle rounds. I don't need Antonio Brown. Well, you're just being dumb. Because I love Diggs, but Diggs is not Antonio Brown. He's not as good. He doesn't have the same upside. He doesn't have the same downside. He's got much lower floor with injuries. They're not the same player. They're not even the same caliber player, even close. So I'm not saying you have to take running backs early. I'm saying the opposite. Value. Remember what we talked about in the graph I showed at the very beginning of this video. Your best shot is rounds 1 through 4. That's your best shot of getting your staple guys for your team, the cornerstones of your team. So don't screw it up. Don't screw it up by saying, I'm going running back 0. I'm going wide receiver 0 before the draft even starts. Because you might walk in thinking you're going RB 0 and you might go wide receiver 0. Because it's all about value early on. In the middle and late rounds, it's not, in my opinion, as much about value. I'll be talking about that in those videos. You guys have heard me say it before. You know what I'm going to talk about late. You take shots. You don't take the consistent guys. But I will be making videos on those too. Early is about value. I don't care if you want to take a running back in the first round. If Antonio Brown's there at 7, you take him every single time. I don't care about all these studies that have been showing you and thinking about this in a closed-minded way and saying, oh, running backs early. Or saying, oh, you hear the podcast by Matt Kelly and it says, oh, running backs always get hurt. You got to take a wide receiver early. No, you don't have to do anything. What you do have to do, the one thing you do have to do, is think about value. Am I getting value on this pick or am I reaching? Because you cannot reach in the 4th round into the 5th round because look at the success rate. You don't want to reach from the 2nd round into the 3rd round because look at the success rate. It goes down. That is the whole point of this video. Don't be reaching early on. Remember the video I talked about when can you reach? You can check that out. Remember the video I talked about who to take early? You can check that out. But that's the end of this one. Whole entire point. The first 4 rounds are about not reaching and taking the value. Let someone else lock themselves in a box doing wide receiver 0 and take the value that it presents. My favorite thing in the world is doing a draft when I see Aaron Rodgers and Gronk in the first round because I know my chances just skyrocketed because I'm going to get such good value in the next 2 rounds. That is the end of this video. If you watched this far, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. We got 5 videos every single week. That is the end of this one, and thanks for watching.